Good to see you,
Cool.
man. How are you?
Yeah,
What's up?
good to see you. Yeah, all good here. How have you
Yeah,
been?
I'm well. I'm well, thanks. What time is it in London?
It's just after 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. now, so it must be quite
Oh,
early for you then.
it's about 11:30. Yeah,
Okay,
it's yeah, not too early, but it's good. Yeah, it was
okay.
great to see you in London. It's been a while since I've been there, but you were half the reason I came, so it was lovely
Oh,
to see you. Yeah.
yeah. I was actually thinking that you might stay here because you love the Hippodrome so much and the games there that I thought you might just pitch up here for a while.
I'm so itching to come back, and if I didn't have a dog here, I would have certainly extended it. I don't know about permanent staying, but I would have certainly extended the games. I was shocked how good the games are in London, especially given our conversation prior hand. Um, where you had mentioned that they're kind of tight and nitty, but I admittedly I was running well and playing well, but I really really enjoyed the games there. They're polar opposites of where I am.
Yeah, that's great. It's not quite the experience that I have, but I think I know why that is, because you tended to play mainly at night, and I tend to play like mainly during the day. So I go to the casino at like 10 or 11 a.m. and stay there until 5 p.m. And I get all the tight, nitty crowd in
For
those
sure.
games. Can't really do much table selecting either. And then if you go there like especially like past midnight or so until like 5 or 6 in the morning, that's when you have great games. But I barely ever play in those games, like once every 4 years or so, maybe. And because of that, like I always have the impression that the games here are pretty bad. But I can see like why you would think that they are amazing because you played at
Yeah,
night.
for sure. I mean, playing during the day makes a world of difference, and me
Yeah.
not having almost any responsibilities while I was there, I got to indulge a little bit all through the night. And I think I played at mostly all the places available in London. I played at the Vic. Is that the place that also named Grosvenor?
Yes,
Uh,
it's
yeah,
Grosvenor, the Vic,
I,
yeah. So
I,
there are two
I,
Grosvenors that have poker, but you probably didn't go to the other one. The other one's a small room, only one, max two tables, but the Vic is the big one. That's the
yeah,
traditional one that's been there
the
since
the play that I played
1960.
with you.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah,
that is,
I played there and the Empire and Stratford, and of course the famous Hippo.
yeah.
Yeah.
So which one did you like best out of the four?
Hands down the Hippo. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. Yeah. I understand why most people wouldn't like it. It's a crowded room. There's no shuffle machines. The games run a little slower. And I heard in the summers it gets quite warm up there.
Mm.
But it wasn't for me. It wasn't a trip to just grind out poker. It was just to experience what London has, and I really found that room to be super friendly. All the dealers, everyone were absolutely a joy. Of course, the drunk tourist crowd were great. The locals were great, and that building is just gorgeous. Loved it.
Yeah, that's absolutely stunning, phenomenal. Yes, I agree with that. But you mentioned that it's pretty crowded in there. It is, but as of last week, they got new tables there, which are quite narrow now. So
Oh,
now
thank
there's
God.
actually more space around them, but now that the tables are actually quite narrow, so you can't have it all. But yeah, I agree. I really like the Hippodrome. I like all the casinos in London, but the Hippodrome just has that feel. I just love that building as well.
It was really great, and thank God they got rid of those tables. They were like huge, massive snooker tables.
Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
never
Now they're
seen
like
tables those that wide.
half the size. Yeah.
Yeah. So how you been? How's coaching going?
Yeah, I've been good. So I decided to stop normal coaching like a few weeks ago. And by normal, I mean where I just did one-on-ones. And now I've up my first ever real product out there with having a few people that I coach. It's kind of like a group coaching, but a mixture between group and one-on-one coaching. So I started this with 4 players now, and we've been doing it for 4 weeks with like weekly coaching calls and help in Discord and putting presentations together and so on. So that one's going really well. And I'm already
Wonderful.
working on the next cohort a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely exciting times ahead. And after 2.5 years of just building my YouTube channel, now I am doing that cohort thing, which is like really a step up, and it's very exciting for me as well because it's all new. And yeah, I get to learn things myself, and I get to learn my clients better than ever before. So yeah, it's been a great end of the year so far for me.
That's
And
great. I actually didn't know you launched a product. I've been
well,
following
yeah.
you on YouTube and been watching your success on YouTube. I think I found you when you had, oh, maybe in the low 2000s. Now you're brushing up to low 20,000. So your success has been mediocre on YouTube, and to hear that you got your first product up and running, that's amazing. Tell me about it. What is it?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so it's a 10-week course where I will meet up once a week, where I go through everything to beat live low stakes poker. So from like pre-flop, then flop, turn, river, we go through drills, hand reading, all the things, and then on top of that we have hand review sessions where players can send in hands and they can tell or ask me any questions. And then there's also the Discord where they can ask any sorts of questions and I will answer them there either in writing or I will record a quick video as well. And that goes for 10 weeks. So that's like roughly 2.5 months. But then after that, I give them another 3 months of support. And my aim is really to get these players from break even to crushing the 1-2 or 1-3. So that's what I do. I don't do higher stakes or anything like that. We don't do any solver work, nothing like that. It's just purely really exploitative and fundamentals. And I see that even good players make so many fundamental mistakes in live poker. So
Right.
that's why this is my main focus. And especially pre-flop, you would think that that's the easiest street to learn, but that's where a lot of players mess up. And yeah, so that's what I've started doing there, and we started about 3-4 weeks ago with this, and yeah,
That sounds
going really well.
pretty intensive. It's quite an intensive course.
It is because it's very hands-on. Yeah, it's not like I pre-recorded and then I just sell something. So it's really
Sure.
me giving that attention to everyone. Yes, and that makes it very
That's
intense.
amazing. Who is it for? At what level of poker would you say someone is ready to take your course?
So I think that like the absolutely ideal candidate would be someone who has played for a while. They know kind of what's going on, but they can't. It hasn't really clicked yet. So they're kind of break even, losing a bit, maybe winning a little bit, but they still have massive leaks and they don't even really know what their leaks are. And that is the ideal person. And ideally also they play 1-2 or 1-3 live or the equivalent thereof, like I use that in like in American games, 1-2 1-3. And sometimes I do have people who are play 2-5. That is applicable for that as well, at least in the US, not so much probably in Europe. But yeah, it's low stakes players who are not total beginners. So if you don't know what a c bet is, and if you don't know that if you have second pair on the flop, you're not meant to just donk because you have something. So
Right.
these sort of things, like you have to be a bit more advanced than that, but you definitely don't have to be advanced for this.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think one of the toughest things for new poker players to get uh, to figure out is how do they even begin to learn? At what level do they start? There's so much free information on the internet and YouTube. Oftentimes, at least for me, when I was trying to improve my game, you didn't know what is real, what is not, and then or what is below my level, what is above my level. It's finding that sweet spot where you're learning the right stuff from the right person. And that's really important too. You know, your learning style has to match the teaching style. And exactly where you are, that sweet spot is very difficult to find. How do people find you mostly?
Yeah, it is indeed very difficult. They find me mainly through my YouTube, so I don't really do any other social media, just very little other stuff or so. A little bit through just players referring me. So I had, especially in London, I had a few players that referred me, and but in general, it is really through my YouTube. So I get good view numbers there these days, and yeah, so people seem to like my style, not only my playing style but also my teaching style, and that is really good. And to what you said earlier, that is exactly it. There is so much free information out there, but the free information has two major problems. One of them is that it's all over the place. You don't know in what order to study it, so there's a video on preflop here and a video on river calls there, and in between there's something about hand reading or whatever. Yeah, there's absolutely no structure to it. And then, as you said, what is below me, what is above me, and not even that, but what is catered to the games that I'm playing. Because like I for example, because I am a bit of a nerd with that, I do love watching videos where they talk about minimum defense frequencies on the river. But then if you play 1-2 or 1-3, that's totally pointless. You're absolutely wasting your time if you study that. And I don't do it for those reasons. I do it because I'm interested in that. And that's why, if especially if you're a beginner, you don't know what to study and you don't know what to believe, because someone
Sure.
says always just range bet in that situation, and then a week later you watch someone else saying, well, if you range bet in this situation, you're losing a lot of money. So who do I believe? And that's why it's important to pick someone that you like, as you said, whose teaching style matches your learning style, and then just go with that person and see what they have to say.
Exactly. And I think playing styles are very important too. For example, you're a poker coach, I'm a poker coach. We played a little bit together. But I think you and I have a very different styles. And that's something that I think is very innate, you know. To some degree, a player might be able to adjust their style, but I think it's sort of inbred from your life experiences. You know, I kind of tend to think how people play poker is how they live.
Mm.
You know, I am more of a loose aggressive player, and there's nothing in the world that I can do to change that. So if I go and try to learn poker from a very GTO theoretical guy, I think I will get absolutely zero value out of that. So
Mm.
matching the style of a coach to a player, I think it's very important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is very important because, as you say, like if you are someone who is like in general a more loose aggressive player, that person will have issues training like with someone who preaches to be a nit, basically, and vice versa. So there are, for
Yep.
example, there are coaches out there who advocate that you should triple barrel a lot and you should raise and go all in all the time. And I think that is a great strategy, but only for the right person. Because it's a bit like, I always say, if you are afraid of heights and you go to a therapist or a doctor or whoever and ask, well, what can I do? And then the doctor says, well, it's really easy. All you have to do is take a parachute and jump out of a plane, and then you'll be fine after that. You'll see that everything's good. And then I
Yep.
say, well, yeah, maybe that will cure you, but you'll also get a heart attack from that. So that's not the way to do it. So if you're a nit and someone tells you you have to triple barrel all the time and you have to go all in all the time, that is not exactly the teaching style that matches that.
Yeah, yeah. Or if you're afraid of heights and you go to a doctor and you say, I'm afraid of heights, and the doctor says, yeah, yeah, it's dangerous. I'm afraid of it too. That's not going to help you.
Yeah, that's also funny
um,
then. Yeah.
how how did you get into poker? How long you been playing?
Yeah, so I started, but I wouldn't even really call that playing poker. I started when I was like in my early 20s at uni. It was the big boom then, like the
Me
money
too.
maker times.
Yeah.
And that's when I started playing. But I was an absolute fish at the time. I didn't do any studying. Like I looked at my two cards, and if I had Jack Deuce offsuit, I thought, well, there's one face card there. Why not limp with it? That was basically my playing style back then. And I played with just a few uni friends once every 2 months or so. And then I didn't really play at all for years. Then I tried a bit of online. I was an even worse fish because all I did was just go all in pre-flop all the time with any sort of a hand because I thought that was fun and I could just
That's the
bully
Elon
everyone
Musk
around.
strategy.
Yeah. And yeah, so then I just left it. And then it was in 2014 when I said, actually, it's quite interesting. I would like to play again. And then a friend of mine said, hey, why don't we just play for a bit? And then I said, yeah, but first I need to study a bit. So then I started reading a few articles online. I bought my first book, and then I kind of had a little
Do you
bit of a
remember which book it was?
yes, the first book I ever read was Colin Mushman's Sit and Go Strategy, because back
I've
then I
actually
thought,
never read that book.
yeah, I mean, now it's kind of obsolete, but even when I read it in 2014, like Sit and Goes had already died by then. But I, for me, that was the easiest way of learning poker strategy because you don't have to play deep stacked so much, but also it's not
Yeah.
like the big multi-table tournament. So that's why Sit and Goes actually, I would still love to play them, but they're kind of dead these days. But yeah, that was the first one, and then I went to play. I was at the card room at what was then Aspers, what's now Genting in Stratford, the one where you went to play as well.
Yep.
And I played a tournament there for £30. It was my first ever outing to a poker game tournament, and I sat down, and in my first hand I had pocket jacks. I raised. Someone called me. The flop came, I think, Jack 8-7. So I had top set there. I basically got it in on the flop there, and the guy had 9-10 offsuit. He flopped the straight, and I didn't improve, and I was out. And I was already about to quit after that. I said, I mean, how bad can you start a poker career? If you sit down first hand, you have jacks, flop a set, and then you still lose. But I
Starting
kept
on a
at it.
cooler, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I kept at it, and after playing tournaments for a few months, I dipped my toes into my first cash game and never looked back. Then I really loved cash games and not so much tournaments, and just went the cash game route after that.
Yeah, for sure. I think cash game is king. I mean, when I started in 2003, and I was in uni just like you, and I had $500, and I realized a dog track near my university was having sit and goes, and it was $50 a sit and goes. So I decided I can, burn through this $500 in 10 sit and goes, and then I get a job, which I have to anyway, or maybe I can make something out of it. And I play. I had no clue about poker. I'd never played it before, and I remember just like you remember your first hand. My first hand was Queen eight offsuit, Queen of Hearts, eight of clubs, and a guy went all in. It was literally the first hand of the sit and go. Another guy went all in, and I saw a first card, and I went all in. I busted, and I went and sat in my car for 3 hours wondering what poker is. But I did come back that day. I played my second sit and go, and I got third. And then I bought in for a third one, and by some bizarre luck, I won the third one, and I was devastatingly hooked for life. And from then on, I just, it was kind of the progression in the US where there was no cash games. There were cash games, but they were limit and they were disastrous.
Yeah.
And so I played those sit and goes, and then gradually, when no limit cash games came available, I played first no limit tournaments and then no limit cash games. And then I decided that for my lifestyle, for my strategy, for my personality, there's no substitute other than cash games. And occasionally I'll play in big tournaments that the buy-in and the payouts justify the time that I will waste playing it. But I'm mainly just a cash game, just like you. How did you get into coaching? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that is actually a very good question because I wasn't planning to. So it was the summer of 2023 when I wrote my first poker book. So I had written books before, but not about poker. And then I wrote a book. It was called the London Poker Guide, which was
Wait
not
a
a
minute, wait a
strategy
minute,
book.
wait a minute. You have a book?
I have a book, but it's not a strategy book, and it's just for London. It's called the London Poker Guide, and
Okay.
it just tells you like what all the rooms are, what the quirks in each room are. I have
That could have been
interviews with.
very useful to me when I came to
It would have
London.
been. Well, that was exactly what I had in mind when I wrote it. Just basically tourists who come to London, but also London regulars who would like to know, to read a bit about the poker scene. And then I also have interviews with every card room manager in London and with
That's
um,
amazing.
mental game coach and so on. So yeah, it was actually it is a very good book. And when I wrote that, I thought, okay, I have to do a bit of marketing for it, and I didn't really know what to do. So I put up an Instagram account and I did all the wrong things with that one. So it didn't really grow. And then I said, okay, well, maybe the next step would be a YouTube channel. And I didn't have coaching on my radar at all at that point. And then I started putting out some videos, which were absolutely dreadful, by the way. So if you, I've deleted most of the old ones. A few are
Oh
still
no.
there, so you can go and watch them if you're interested,
Yeah.
but they are pretty terrible. And so I started doing more and more on that on YouTube. And then I think by November or so after like 4 or 5 months, I had the first coaching inquiries on YouTube from just players. Like one was in Brazil, one was in Bulgaria, one was in New Zealand. And then I thought, okay, well, if they want poker coaching, that's actually quite interesting. And since my wife is a teacher by trade anyways, we talked about it a bit, and then I said, yeah, why not? I've been doing very well in these games. I've learned so much, and why not try it as a coach? But it was never really a plan. And I just started, and saw it was fun. I saw my students learn things. They started doing well in their games, and then from there it just progressed to the point where I said, okay, well, actually I could have this as a career because I don't want to play full time. So, but I still want to work in poker full time. So that's like the ideal, not even compromise, but that's just the ideal scenario to go
Sure.
for. And
Sure.
how was it about you? Because you also didn't start out as a coach. When we first met, you had built the Vinton app, but you weren't a coach at the
Yeah.
time yet.
I was coaching some friends and people that I knew,
Mm,
just helping them out, but I was not a coach by any means in terms of professionally. I was just helping out friends and colleagues that I knew. I got into coaching mainly because I was trying to find a way to improve my game. I took a long break from poker. I was a professional pilot, and I was flying, and occasionally on overnights in interesting cities I would go play, but I had lost touch with poker. And through the advance of solvers and everything, I went from a mediocre player to a really bad player. And when I moved to Mexico and I started playing again seriously, once I gave up flying, I realized how far behind the curve I had become. So I started studying, and I am a very bad student. I don't have the discipline to sit there and hit the book, especially without any guidance. You know, as you said, there's no structure in learning poker a lot of times. So I decided that one way that I've always given myself structure is by writing about poker, because it leads me to research, and, you know, there's a record of knowledge, so to speak. So I started writing about a particular problem that I was having at that time, which was overcalling. I was massively overcalling in almost every spot, and I just, yeah, a lot of times, almost every time, I knew in my gut that I'm way behind, but I just have to, and I didn't know mentally what is going on. So I wrote a paper about it. It turned out to be like 30 pages, and I gave it to a friend. He's also a professional poker player, and he loved it. He gave me positive feedback on it, and it really helped me. So I carried that on, and I ended up writing a lot of different papers, which culminated into making my first book, which I called The Poker Delusion. Um, After doing that, I realized there's so much in here. And one of the ways that I became a good pilot, you know, when I was in flight school, I was not a good student. I was not a good pilot. But one of the ways that I became an excellent pilot, and later on with the airlines, I was able to succeed, was I became an instructor. I knew very early on in my life, the best way to really learn something is to teach it, to master it. You have to teach it, because students will force you to think about things that you've never thought about on your own, you know,
Yep.
and I think you can attest to that. It makes you a far better um, uh, master of your craft. So I thought, you know, I want to get better. My friends want to get better. I may not be the best player in the world, but I'm better than them in some spots, and they're better than me in some spots. So let's trade. You teach me what I know, or you teach me what you know, and I'll teach you what I know.
Mhm.
And that helped me finish the book. And at that point, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to take the book and I'm going to take it into a course. And it led me to uh, develop a whole product series without ever having an audience of more than 5 or 6 people that I was working with regularly. Now, over time, I've probably worked with uh, maybe a few dozen people, but regularly over time of 6 months or so, it's been only about 10 people that I've worked with regularly. And one of the things that I desperately wanted was, I was a big fan of his name escapes me right now. Crush Live Poker with Bart
Oh,
Hansen.
yep. Yeah.
I really enjoy talking about poker. I'm a theoretical guy. Like a great friend of mine, Gary, he's a professional poker player now. He's a professional Omaha player. We used to get on calls and talk about a hand for 4 hours, and I learned so much more about analyzing those spots theoretically than I do by looking at charts or anything else.
Yeah.
But Bart is not always available. Gary's not always available. You can't just call somebody in the middle of the night and say, hey, let me run through this hand with you. I decided that, hey, with the AI coming along, maybe there's a way that I can bring that into poker. And I found a way, and I designed this Vinton Poker Coaching AI built on Chat GPT, using my book, my data, my strategy, and it tremendously helped me. Again, I gave it to a few friends and they loved it. So I decided I'm going to open it up for the public. And with that and the book, I kind of decided that, you know what? I really, I love poker more than anything I've ever done in my life. I think it's more fascinating. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's something that I don't think I can ever master, nor can anyone else. We can just get close to that possibility as much as possible. I'm going to continue going down this path, but I want to do it more than just grinding at the tables. I want to get better. I want to teach other people get better. And I really enjoy, be it in flying or in poker, seeing that progression, the sequential light bulbs lighting up in people's heads, just getting them over those hurdles. I absolutely love it, and it helps me tremendously. So it led me to create a whole product series, the book, the course, the AI. I even have an assessment now where it assesses you through 40 questions where your leaks and strength may be without ever having an audience. So I'm in the spot you were 2 years ago, trying to build that audience while you are building your first product, and looks like you've done really well with it successfully. And it's a very interesting path that you're taking with it because, like you said, it's one-on-one and it's very intensive over a long period of time. So I commend you for that. I'm excited to see you go through it.
Yeah, but what you were saying, that's exactly what I think too. So having started coaching has definitely made me a better player as well. Because as you said, you get questions that you would never ask yourself. You put yourself into spots that maybe I would have analyzed them on my own, but on a more superficial level. But if you have to tell someone what their mistakes were exactly, you have to look at that whole thing in a different way. And it's even like small things, small routines, small thought processes that I've developed by just teaching them over and over and over. That has really made them sink in for myself, because I've always known certain things, but now teaching them has really made them sink in. And that
Absolutely.
is the big advantage of coaching as well. And that's why I recommend it to people, like, even if you are not very advanced, even if you're still kind of a beginner, but you know someone who is even more of a beginner than you or has more leaks than you. I mean, it can be a bit dangerous if you then pass on your own leaks, but it's still good to have that community to talk about hands, to try to teach other people something. And that really helps you as well, then. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, in the case of us, you played poker for a long time. I played poker for a long time. We both have made a successful career out of it. But even a person who just knows the absolute base, just the rules of poker, the hand rankings, they have something, they have a knowledge base compared to someone who has never been exposed to poker. So they even have something to teach. And in the process of just teaching the most basics, they can reinforce their knowledge of it, because knowing something is one thing, explaining the why and the how opens doors that you never even imagined to exist, because there are things. Donald Rumsfeld said this famously, and he got ridiculed for it, but I think it's such a truism. There are things we know, there are things we know we don't know, but there are things that we don't even know we don't know, and they're only amplified by the questions that we face through our opponents, our students, our coaches, that force us to think about
Yeah.
every spot, and this is true in life as well, every position that we are in a much deeper format, in a much deeper level, that is always insightful, that always closes the neural gaps between separated knowledge pieces in our brain. And when I was teaching flying, one of the most principal basic things that an instructor learns is there are 4 levels to learning. There's the rote memorization, right? You first start memorizing stuff, right? Then you understand what you memorize, you graduate to a higher level, right? And most people get stuck in that level, right?
Mm.
In poker and in most things in life. To go beyond that, which is application and correlation and comprehension, you need someone probing you, asking you questions. You need a coach. Knowledge today is almost free, right? With AI and internet, there's everything out there that you can possibly want to know about any subject, but you're not going to learn it, and you're certainly not going to master it. You could go to a library and read all the medical books about becoming a doctor, but you're not going to become a doctor. What makes you a doctor, what makes you a pilot, is someone sitting beside you and analyzing you, seeing you from a different angle, and asking you why, how.
Yeah.
Think about this. Have you seen it from this perspective? Have you seen it from that perspective? And over time, those things that you memorized, that you understood, that you've been applying, all of a sudden, those seemingly very incoherent, separate pieces of information start making connections that you never thought existed before. And nowhere else is more true than in poker, because poker is, the more I understand poker, the more I study poker, the more I realize what a deep pool it is. You
Mhm.
know, at the beginning, people have no clue. They're like, "Oh, it's just cards." You know, if you got the blah, 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 it's very, systematic and tic tac toe-ish. No, I literally have spent, my record is 6.5 hours, and people don't believe this. People that don't play poker don't believe this. 6.5 hours talking about one hand intensely.
That
What else
that
can
is
you say
quite a
that about?
record, I must say.
I love it. I absolutely, absolutely enjoy it. It's so great. And I want to talk about the hand that you and I got to play. We played together in one session, unfortunately, and it was a very short session, and I blame you entirely for that. But I completely get why, and I'll get to why that it was a short session shortly, because it was a very interesting reason, and we only got to really lock horns in one hand, and I would love to talk to you about it. Do you remember it?
Yes, so that was a very interesting hand there. Yes, so it was a 1-3 game at the Vic that we played, and there was a
Yeah,
limper in that hand, and then I
beautiful
raised.
room, by the way.
Yeah, it is now. They refurbished it just a few months ago, and it's
Yeah.
amazing now. Yeah, but it was one of those daytime games, so a lot of like not exactly OMC type players, but still kind of tighter, knittier, older gentlemen. And then one of them I can't remember exactly, but I think there was a limp there. Then I raised to something like 20 because I had pocket eights. I was in something like hijack, I think, and you were button or at least in late position because I had you to my
I,
left,
I I seem
unfortunately.
to remember. I think I was the button maybe cut off, but I was very
Yeah,
late. Yeah,
something like that, exactly. And then you three bet me there. And so normally pocket eights is kind of like borderline hand. And by the way, I tend to tell people to fold that if they get three bet, because first of all, most three bets in 1-2 or 1-3 games, especially in the US, will be quite strong. And against that range, pocket eights is not doing very well. Now, I know in
yeah.
GTO, you can call, you can fold with that hand. It's kind of like break even. But I thought the one time when I have a pocket pair and the great master from overseas comes here and decides to three bet me, I can't just fold and move to the next one. So I decided to call in there. And I remember I had a
I
pretty good flop then. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if you want
Before
to
we
say
get
it,
to the flop, before we get to the flop, I think the reason you called my three bet in that spot is because even though I was fresh in the game, I think by that time I was there maybe 45 minutes. I think you had figured out reasonably well my style of play, that I'm a more looser, aggressive player. I had played a number of hands by then, and I think this is where your ability to exploit players shines above others. Technically you're absolutely right, but this is a people game. Yes,
yeah,
pocket eights is not a good candidate to uh, call a three bet generally, but against the right opponent with the right stack size, which happened to be me that day, because you realize I'm a loose aggressive, and we were
yeah,
fairly deep. I think you were about 450 effective.
yeah, yeah.
I had you covered. I think it was a beautiful call against me.
Yeah, but I will say, actually, against your player type, it's not a mistake to fold that hand out of position because, yes, most likely I am ahead there because you can do that with two napkins, basically. But the thing is still, if you continue applying pressure and if I don't hit a set or anything else like a straight or so, I will struggle to call you down, and I will have to bluff catch over potentially 3 streets there and put in all my money. So it's not even a slam dunk call against a loose aggressive player. And I'd almost prefer calling against a tight player, if we're deep enough, but a tight player who can't let go of his aces and kings if I hit a set. But against you, it is kind of borderline. But yes, you are right. I did notice what kind of a style you were playing, and I actually even considered four betting there
I wish you
because
had.
yeah, well, in hindsight, maybe, but although maybe you would have slow played your hand then, and then I would have gotten you post flop. But yeah, I did consider, because pocket eights you can sometimes four bet that against, but please don't do this against your typical 1-2 or 1-3 opponent. So
Absolutely, I don't
what
recommend it.
we are discussing now
No.
is basically a hand between two coaches who know about GTO, not necessarily that we're playing it, but we know about what the right things would be in certain spots. So I know what's plus EV and what's minus EV. But please don't go out there and four bet pocket eights against the guy who hasn't played a hand in 2 hours.
Yeah,
But
you're right. I think it's a move that is not recommended unless you have an exceptional awareness of the other player and the spot
yeah,
that you're in. Yeah,
yeah,
which you
exactly.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm not gonna reveal what I had. I hope we haven't yet, but if we have, I'm gonna just keep the suspense going
yeah,
for the audience.
cut it out.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and so I three bet and you call, and we see a flop of, I believe it was 8-9 Jack Rainbow, which is a very, very interesting flop.
Correct. Yes. So that board, like, without revealing what you had, but like for your three betting range, it's actually a terrible flop. Like
Terrible.
if
Absolutely
you have
horrible. I was devastated.
aces, kings, or queens, you don't love it. If you have, I mean, of course, if you have jacks, you love it, or nines or eights, if you do that. But you have so many hands, like all your ace kings, ace queens, king queens, all of those don't love it. And even a hand like ace jack and king jack is fine, but it's kind of in the same bucket as aces, kings, and queens there, because it's
Yep.
still only one pair, and that board smashes my range. And as we know, I
Yes.
did have pocket eight, so I did have a set there.
Yeah. I mean,
And
given the fact that you didn't four bet me, it absolutely decimated my range. But I think the way the hand progressed was interesting. Uh, what was your action on the flop?
yeah, I checked. I naturally check everything there to the aggressor. I would never come out leading, even though it is a good board for me. But I would just, like, in sense of for my range. So I would still always just check to the aggressor there, especially to a loose aggressive aggressor who might see bet there with anything. So I'm not gonna give you a get out of jail free card by
Yeah,
going with a pot size bet on that flop, and then you can fold any two overcards or whatever you had. So
gone.
definitely I checked there, and then I believe you c bet it.
I see betted. If I remember correctly, I think I went for about half or 45% pot, just a reasonable standard C bet, and you flat behind.
Yeah, so I just called there, and this was I did think about what to do there. So obviously I didn't consider folding, but I did consider whether I should raise, because the board, even though it smashes my range, it's actually quite dangerous for me as well,
It
because
is.
you like. Yes, I didn't think that you had a straight there, but like with the next card to come, like if a 10, a queen, a king, or an ace hit, neither of those cards I actually want to see, because you could have aces, kings, or queens. And with a 10, you could also have queens or ace queen or queen jack or whatever. So whilst I'm not necessarily dead against these cards, but the like half the deck is not great for me, and with potentially two cards to come, that might help you. So I did consider just raising there, and I would have done it against a tight opponent, because I
Yep.
think that a tight opponent is likely to have aces, kings, or queens there, and he's not going to fold to my check raise straight away with an overpair normally. And if he has jacks, well, then I'm going to lose my entire stack anyway, so I don't care if he has jacks, really. And against you, though, I figured that, but I was in a conundrum because I knew whatever I do, I'm basically not. It's not a great option there, because I knew you're capable enough of knowing to slow down with a lot of hands there. But my hope was just that if you have nothing, you might just go for a double barrel then and try to get me off some showdown value. So that's why I only checked or called there after you bet half pot, and then we went to a turn, which I believe was
Well,
another.
I just on the flop, I think your assessment was absolutely right, because besides just the hand, there's a few dynamics at play there, which is, uh, we're friends, we're colleagues and friends, and we both have. Even though we've never played against each other, we have a loose background about each other's experience in poker. And me coming to London to play with you, and this being the first hand that we're getting involved, you must have sensed that I am eager to battle, right? So, given that, uh, I can certainly jacks or nines are not outside of my range, and even if they're not, I'm not going to uh, let this pot go uncontested without a fight. I mean, it was partly I wanted to play the hand and win the money, but I also wanted to, put you to the test and myself against you as well. So there was that dynamic at play
Yes,
also, which enforces your reason for not three betting, with, uh, it, pot
four betting.
control, I think, was key in that moment.
Yes, and that's what I sensed. And my hope was that you had two napkins in your hand, because I thought that that would be your style. And I thought if you have just a hand like whatever ace four offsuit or so, I wouldn't put it past you to three bet me with that sort of a hand on the button. That you then would try to get me off maybe a hand like pocket sevens or ace queen, ace king, something like that. So that definitely also played into that, and I was aware of that. But I also was aware that if you have something, the problem is you will go for pot control, because, as you say, with the whole dynamic there, I kind of expected you to first of all realize what's going on anyway, that you can't just come out blasting, and secondly that you knew about our dynamic, and that's why you would check the turn quite often. But then I thought, if the runout's not too terrible, then I can bet the river maybe, or let you bluff, but we'll get to that point later. So first we had the turn, and the turn was kind of like sweet for me, but I think on the other hand it wasn't, because there was another jack. So now it was 8 9 jack jack, and I think there was a flush draw as well out there now, although I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure about the flush draw.
But
I can't
it doesn't
remember if the
matter, because
draw.
I had a
Yeah,
boat at that point, because it was
yeah.
so now I'm only losing to quad jacks, to pocket nines, or if you happen to have jack nine or jack eight, which, but whatever, I'm still great. And the thing is, now my consideration
I
was to.
actually, not to interrupt you, I actually think the flush draw didn't come there, because if it had, it would have been, you know, much more reason for you to, you know, take a stab at at the turn, hoping that,
Yeah, well, although against you, I wouldn't still not do that. Although in hindsight, I think I should have done that. That was probably a mistake. I should have just led small on that turn, because the jack is a good card for me,
great
and
card.
and I should have bet there, but I was too much in the mind, well, this is a loose aggressive player, and now with a jack there, he'll think that I don't have a jack, so he can put pressure on me. So that's what I was thinking there. So I just kind of, or maybe it was even automatic that I checked. I definitely didn't really think it through, and so I checked. And now you can tell me from your perspective the turn.
I was when the jack came, it's one of the worst cards out there for me, right? And it doesn't help me at all, and it just hits your range smack dab in the middle, and just turns my hand into not even a bluff catcher at that point. So I was ready that even the smallest stab, even the I was more afraid of a smaller stab than a big stab. I was ready to give it up. So I was very happy to see a check and check behind.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and then after you checked behind, then I got the worst possible, no, the second worst possible river. I guess a jack would have been even worse, but I got a 9 there. So now the board
Yep.
was 8, 9, jack, jack, 9. So 2 jacks, 2 nines, and an 8. I still have a boat, but if you have a jack or some 9, which I mean, you shouldn't have, but you could still have. That was really a terrible river for me, and I didn't really know what to do there. So the thing was, I thought you were very likely to have an overpair at that point, or an like an ace king ace queen type of hand that you were basically about to give up. And because of that, I led the turn because I thought you probably would just take your showdown value with aces, kings, queens, and even with ace king and ace queen, you would probably give up there. And that's why I thought on this run out, it seems a bit unlikely that you will bet that river, and also because all of my other pairs would have been counterfeit now. So if I had 7 6s 5s whatever,
Hmm.
they're done now. So like even if you have ace queen, you'd be winning against my pocket sevens now. So that's why I thought it's very unlikely that you will bet that river. So my best chance is to just come out betting and get a call from aces or kings or maybe even ace high, because there are 2 pairs on the board and an ace might even be okay against a counterfeit pair or whatever else I had there. So that's why I came out and I bet. I don't remember how much I bet actually, but I don't
I
think I
think
bet.
you bet
Wasn't too big, was it?
you bet about 125, which was about like a little less than 40%.
Yeah, something like that. So about 35 or so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would think, because it is still a big bet in money terms, but in big blinds or in relative to the size of the pot, it wasn't, and that's why I thought if you have an overpair, you might not be able to fold it for such a small bet. But yeah,
I
you.
when that 9 came out on the river, um I was kind of elated because this is normally a spot where people make a lot of mistakes on that on the double paired board, especially on the river. And I had my plan was, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to come up with this plan, but the plan was that if it goes check, I'll just check behind.
Yeah, that's what.
Uh,
Yeah,
if if you bet large, I let it go. But if you bet super small, which is what the general public will do, not in terms of percentage of the pot or the big blinds, but at those 1-3 games, typical um, bet that I will face is about 75 to 80 pounds,
yeah, yeah,
which is on aggregate a large number, right? But a
yeah.
very small percentage of the pot. And if I was ready that if a bet like that came out, I was going to jam. and
Okay.
put you in an absolute miserable spot. And if you call, you call. But my my philosophy in poker, and this is something that I teach as a rule of thumb, is make your opponent's life as miserable as possible every chance you get, because when people are in a tough spot, that's when they make mistakes. And you make mistakes in poker, you make money when your opponents make mistake in poker. You know, that's you don't make money by outplaying them, you just let them make bad decisions. And
Mm.
my plan was to put you in a spot where you would make a really tough bad decision. And I think it may have been successful. I don't know because it didn't happen, but you ended up betting the exact right amount that would just put me instead in the grinder, because it was on the cusp of just calling or laying it down. And after, and I think I tanked on it quite a bit. And
Did, yeah.
uh, I tanked on it, but out loud, because I wanted to share with you, given the dynamic that we have, my thought process, so later on we could have this conversation. And when I think out loud, it kind of takes a little bit more time. But I just could not see any bluffs that you would have in that
But do,
spot.
do, do you do you want to reveal what you had now? Maybe.
I
Mm.
had pocket kings,
Yeah.
and uh, had you bet that 75, 80 pounds that I was hoping you would bet, I would have jammed for the remainder of your stack and hopefully put you in a tough decision. I don't know what it would have done, but maybe now you can tell me, had it gone that way, small bet jam, what do you think you would have done, or what the population should do in that spot?
I I would have been an absolute blender there. So I think that also influenced my size on the river, because I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking if I bet something like 125, you're not gonna bluff jam there, because that was what I was basically afraid of. Normally, if you play 1-2 and 1-3, this is kind of like a free roll, because you are not gonna get jammed on the river normally by your typical recreational opponent as a bluff. If they jam there, that's like a jack. There's nothing else. That's not a nine. That's not anything else than a jack if your typical
especially
recreational
when it
opponent.
goes especially when it goes bed jam.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no way normally that's not a jack. But the problem is if you play against a competent player, competent players can turn pocket kings or pocket aces into a bluff in such a spot. Although in this case, I don't know if the thing is, I have a lot of jack X hands still in my range when I bet the river, and obviously I'm not gonna fold that. And the only hand that you really get me to fold is probably pocket eights, and maybe if I have a nine, but I don't really have nines unless I have quads. So I think, whilst I really like the idea of turning an overpair into a bluff, because that is next level thinking, which the vast majority of players wouldn't do, I think in this spot it wouldn't be the right thing, because there is only really one hand, and that's precisely pocket eights, that you get me to fold, that you're not ahead of. Because as I said, if I have a counter fit hand, or if I have pocket tens even, or pocket queens, then you win if you just call there. So that also went through my mind, and I didn't think that you would actually turn a pair into a bluff there. I thought if you have just a hand like ace king or ace queen, you could turn that into a bluff, or any other hand. I mean, I hadn't filtered you at all. You three bet pre-flop, you see bet the flop, I just called. Turn went check check. So you could have anything. If you do that with 5-3 offsuit, you could have that hand on the river there, and you might bluff. And that's why I had to pick a size where I wouldn't get put into a blender, but where you would really have to consider calling or folding with pretty much anything there. So that's why I went for that size. And yeah, your tank folded, and yeah, great fold there. But indeed, I do not have bluffs. Like, Queen 10
No.
suited would be the only thing, but even that's not. Sorry, no, that's actually not a bluff. That's that's a straight there. So I don't have any bluffs there.
Yeah. My thought process in that moment, and I'm not sure if it's correct. I have to think about it more. But in that moment was I eliminated a jack from your range because I think you would have bet the jack on the turn. It wouldn't have gone check check. Uh,
Yeah, but I think I see why you would think that, but with that logic, I would also bet pocket eights there. Like, and I didn't. I think I probably just check everything to. I don't really have donk bets in my range against good players. I only have them against weak players if
right.
I do that for value. But against you, I don't think I ever donk there. So that it worked out for you, but
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have. I would might have check raised, but probably not even. I don't know. That's a tricky bit because I know that if I check call there, you're not gonna bet the river, but if I check raise the turn, then you'll fold most of the stuff as well.
Yep.
So that's why that is exactly why even against good players, you just want to fold pocket eights often in pre-flop if you're out of
It's
position.
hard.
Exactly
I think
because
this
it's hard.
hand demonstrates how hard it is to get value out of a hand like, your
Exactly.
hand. It's just
Yeah.
there's a far deeper downside than upside because unless you're going against someone that is just paying you off all the time, it's just hard to get their stack.
Exactly. And that's why I keep telling people, and especially if the three bet size is more than the usual 3x in position or 4x out of position, just fold these hands. Like even in GTO, they're break even. And if you face a bigger bet and you're out of position, it's just not worth it in most cases. And then at 1-2 and 1-3, typically such a three bet comes from. Well, turns out you are also one of these nits that three bet me with pocket kings there, but I thought you might have a bit of a
One of
wider
the
range.
few times I've been called a nit in my life, I wear it with pride. Shortly, so that was the only hand that we played together. But after this hand, shortly after this hand, something happened that solidified uh, my perception of you as a player, which was you table changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So a new table opened, and that table just wasn't great because I had you as an aggressive player to my left, then the player to your left was actually a nightmare to play against. I would have loved to have him to my right, but the problem was he just kept three betting me as well. And if I have players to my left who just keep three betting me, that's not a good position to be in. So, and I couldn't
Not at all.
move the seat. And then to my right, there were all these passive players, yes, but I couldn't even isolate them properly because, as I said, then I got three bet all the time. So that was just a setup where I knew that it just wouldn't be plus EV if I continued playing there. So I had to just table change and see if I got luckier there, which wasn't the case. That other table was equally terrible, actually. And that's what I mean with London games. Those are the daytime games. They're just
Yeah,
not as juicy at all as the nighttime games.
but I think that was that's really important to talk about because I think one of the biggest thing players can do that will tremendously improve their win rate, and this is something that is completely ignored by the general population, is seat selection, selecting the right seat and moving when the opportunity at a different table could be better. This is so underrated. And in this environment where you have a friend uh, from United States visiting, we're playing at the same table. We already were in one hand. Normally, 99% of the population wouldn't table change, but you were disciplined and cognizant enough that you prioritize playing well and your win rate over everything else, and you moved your table, and I commend you for it. I think that's something that a lot of people should
Yeah.
do. That should be a priority, and it's not. And if they make that small change, they will see tremendous positive
Yeah,
results from it. And
absolutely.
not only you had the whereabouts, but your priorities were completely aligned in the right direction, that you're there to play poker. That's the goal, not to have fun, not to see a friend, not to test each other. Primary, you're there for poker, and you moved. And I think that just showed me in that moment, more than the hand, what a disciplined poker player you are. And I commend you for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I will say though that we were gonna go for dinner later anyway, so that was also like that made it easier to table change because normally maybe I would have felt a bit more pressure to stay at the table with you. But yeah, I mean, if I play poker, I play poker, and I don't go there to have a good time, which hopefully I will still have. But that is not my primary goal, as you say. And yes, table change or even seat change is just so important. I actually wrote an email. I don't know, maybe you saw that because I know you sometimes read my emails, but that was an email that I sent out just a few weeks ago. The title was, the headline was, the table
I did.
selection is huge, but this is even bigger, and this meaning is the seat change, because
Yeah.
hardly anyone does that enough, and that is just so massive. If I could have changed to your left and to that guy who was to your left, like if I could have gone 2 seats to your left, then it's a completely different table. Then I got the
Then I would have
two
left. I
maniacs
would have
basically
moved.
to my right, and it's
Yeah.
perfect. So, but even your position wasn't great because you had that other maniac to your left, and you
Yep.
battled him quite hard as well, as I saw then.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's why it's table
But
selection big and seat selection bigger.
seat selection is absolutely huge, and I I'm not too proud to admit that sometimes I don't take my own advice, because I'll see a better player at the table to my left, and I, in that moment, and it happened at the Hippo, there was a great player to my left. I avoided him all night, but then I decided that now that I think at in that game we were 1,000 big blinds deep, I decided that I'm gonna battle with this guy, and boy, was it a battle! And I didn't come out unscathed. So I do. I also I not don't take my own advice now, more than ever. I table change and see change, but when I see an opportunity to kind of uh play among better players and better caliber players, just to push my own limits further, I tend to do it. Good job on that table change. I thought that was very telling about the kind of player you are. Where can people find you to sign up for your coaching and program if they want to?
Yeah, so the easiest way is just to go to my website, which is livepokerguide.coach. So it's not .com, it's .coach. And alternatively, I have a link on my YouTube page as well, which is Live Poker Guide. So there you can see all my videos as well.
Awesome. So yeah, be sure to subscribe. I'm a subscriber. I
Thank you.
enjoy your videos, and I've seen the progression of them, and they're getting to be quite professional, I might say. So
Thank
well done
you.
on that. But I do miss your old thumbnails, though. They were great, especially the guy in the robe. What was it? I forget, the Greek robe.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
great.
That was a fun one. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I I I did send you very quickly the analysis of my AI, Vinton Poker Coaching AI, about the hand that you and I played
Yes.
together. I don't want you to get into it, but in general, what do you think of that analysis that the AI did?
Yeah, I think it is very good. It's like almost on the level of a coach. So it definitely does a great job. And I said that already even over a year ago when we first met. And then I actually made a video where I interviewed you on my channel. So maybe you can even link that one for people to find and watch. So yeah, I think that is a great thing, and you've definitely done a tremendous job in programming it and improving it. And I actually have students who work with it. I have especially one guy who puts in pretty much every hand of note into it, and he really loves studying with the Vinton app. So yeah, definitely a great tool, and I enjoyed reading to see that hand whether I did a good job or not. It said that we both did fine on that one, and it praised you very much for laying down those pocket kings. I don't know
I
if you
think it knew
tweaked
that
that a
I'm the one
little bit or
asking.
if it was its real opinion, but yeah, well done on that.
Yeah, over the last year, the AI has gotten tremendously more capable. It does suffer from the general affliction that all AI suffers from, which is right now it kind of tries to appease the reader or the
Mm,
messenger. But other than that, occasionally still makes some errors, just like any coach or any live person would do. You just have to clarify it. But I think it does a really good job, and it's a great starting point for anyone that wants to improve their game. They haven't decided exactly which direction as far as coaching they want to take it. I think it's a great starting point, and um, it's a free tool. It's a great addition. I think anyone that can use it should use it, and I'll definitely include the link. And to your credit, the lovely video that you made about it, I thank you very much. It got the word out initially, and it was very effective.
yeah, so pleasure. And as I said, yeah, it is an amazing tool, and anyone should use it really.
Awesome. Well, Andreas, I love getting together with you over there, and I love being able to chat with you like
Yeah,
this. It's a great pleasure. I will surely, definitively make it to London again, hopefully when it's a little warmer.
yeah.
But you're always welcome to come to Mexico and
Thank you so much.
enjoy the games of Mexico, which resemble very much the games of the early to mid 2000s. It's full of
Wow.
action, high variance, great play.
Great. I have to come. Yeah, never been to Mexico, so that's definitely on my agenda. Thank you very much for
Come
having me.
visit.
And I can't wait for you to come back here or for us to meet up in North America.
Yeah, definitely. California is great. Austin is great. Texas is lovely, but I'll definitely come visit you. Thanks for coming. Great chatting with you. And everyone, be sure to subscribe to Live Poker Guide on YouTube and visit Andreas's website, livepokerguide.coach, not .com.
Correct. Yes. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.